So what I'm going to do in this next clip is I'm going to go ahead and talk about some of the basic ways that you can negotiate your employment agreement. Now, this is for the musician that's not interested about being in a band or being a solo artist. This is somebody that's actually hiring out his or her services to other people that are already successful. So take these tips very seriously, and let's go ahead and get started. Talking about travel and lodging accommodations is very important. Essentially, here's where it works. When you're a contractual employee and you're out on the road going from night after night and you're precluded from doing other work, the employer pays for the transportation, obviously, right? If they're flying you out to the gig, they pay for the airfare, they pay for the tour buses to get from one city to the next, et cetera, and so on and so forth. And when when they don't, you should keep your receipts from cabs and things like that you take to the airport, and you potentially can get those reimbursed. But in any case, the level of accommodations often are going to vary. You might travel in a van, you might travel in a bus, you might sleep to a hotel, you might sleep to your own hotel room. So you need to talk about these things because in some cases they can be negotiated for, okay? Now, all this being said, be careful of one thing, and that is incidentals are not paid. Incidentals are things that are incidental to your night of being there. Like, for example, sometimes Wi-Fi if it's not free, sometimes the mini bar, sometimes room service. So be really careful because there's kind of like a little of a newbie trick out there where like everybody hangs out in your room and you might think, oh, everyone likes me, I'm really popular. And then you're stuck with the $300 or $400 bill for room service. So be careful with that, all right? So remember, travel accommodations are covered, potentially can be negotiated for in terms of whether or not you have your own room or not, but definitely be careful about incidentals because you're paying for them. Special clothing is something to definitely think about when negotiating your employment agreement. I mean, it's not really a huge thing, but sometimes, if you're making a video and if the artist is making a video and you're asked to be on that video, but they want you all to wear something specific, or they want you to wear, leather-studded pants that you would never wear on the streets, it's going to cost you, a pretty penny, but you're doing it for the gig. So should that be covered by the employer? So, you got to take this stuff in stride. If you've got a huge gig and they're paying you really well, you shut up about stuff like this. But also you should know that, they have the money and they know what's right and wrong. And sometimes if you don't ask, right, as I said before, you don't always get what you deserve, you get what you negotiate for. So just kind of, feel this out a little bit, right, and know that it exists. All right, so when you go out on the road, you're going to need travel cases, especially if you're a drummer. You don't throw your drums, in those little cloth things over your back and throw them on an airplane. If you're doing a big tour with a big artist, you're going to need road cases, and road cases cost a crap load. So yes, I'm talking about those big coffin looking things where you throw one bass drum in and it's got the wheels and people are wheeling it through the airport. You're going to have to get those made, but where are you going to come up with $4,000 or $5,000 to make custom cases? So oftentimes what you can do is negotiate with your employer into the employer agreement that they will maybe put up the money to get them made, right? And then maybe you have an option afterwards to buy them from the artist, or who knows, maybe they'll be cool and just, maybe give you a little bonus and say, yo, just keep the cases, who knows? I've had a friend that worked with a very, very big artist. That's exactly what happened with him. They fronted the money, made the cases, and they were just like, take the cases. You did a great job, and that's our bonus. So just something to think about because obviously when you're going to be hitting the road, cases are a very, very big part of the gig. Equipment parts and repairs are important to think about. I mean, when you're out on the road, breaking skins every night, breaking sticks, breaking, strings, bass strings, whatever equipment you're using, it's potentially there's going to be a lot of wear and tear. Now, so what does that mean? I mean, do you like give the runners like $10 to go buy you a new head? A lot of times as part of the tour budget, you can negotiate in with the employer to say, hey, can you cover my sticks, or can you cover my skins while we're out on the road in the actual tour budget? And sometimes that works out successfully that way. In the best or worst case scenario, however you look at it, sometimes what they'll do is they'll just say, well, look, let's hook you up with an endorsement. And because of their stature, they very easily put a call in to an equipment manufacturer that is willing to do a deal with you. Okay. But in any case, this is something that needs to be talked about and discussed. When you're up on stage playing, especially a drummer, if a cymbal falls over, like, what do? Stop and go, pick it up myself? No, you're going to have an equipment tech. But who's going to provide the equipment tech? And am I going to have a private equipment tech, or is it going to be bouncing around between the guitar player, the bass player, and the vocalist? So again, something to ask about. I've seen some people try to play fast ones on people where they say, well, if you want a guy, you hire him and you bring him out. Typically, it's not your responsibility. It is the artist's responsibility to do that. You're the musician up there. The artist wants to present themselves in front of their audience and to look good, and that's their responsibility. It's part of putting on a show. So ask about whether or not there's going to be techs out there or roadies out there that are going to be helping you set up and break down and perform properly on stage. It's very, very important, and a successful tour cannot exist without really great tech. So again, something important to bring up. What happens if things happen to your gear on the road? Like, is there insurance? Is it covered under the employer? Are they going to try to say it's your fault? I mean, if something happens in the club, then maybe the club or the promoter will be the person that covers the insurance. Or is it the employer that you're out on the road with? Or is it you? But in any case, it's definitely something that you should talk about. Is your equipment insured while you're out on the road? I know people where vans get stolen and broken into and everything gets stolen. I know where accidents happen and things get damaged. I mean, things get lost. Sometimes people forget to load a case onto the bus. What happens then? Who pays for it? Really, really important things to talk about, okay? Maybe that a lot of people don't even think about, right? So definitely think about it, right? So you guys, I provided a lot of tips for you. Again, this is for the person that is the musician that doesn't want to be in a band, doesn't want to be a solo artist, and just wants to hire out their services. It's also for the musician that's not playing with employers with limited budgets. This is now when you're breaking into a little bit of the bigger leagues. And the reason why I'm talking about this is because you are going to break into the big leagues, right? That's number one. And number two, the problem is that when all of a sudden it happens, you're not going to know what to do, because you have been playing for free for so long, right? Just trying to get a break. And then all of a sudden, bam, you have the opportunity to go out on the road and someone says, we'll pay you double what you're making at Starbucks. And you're like, yeah, when in reality, you're entitled to so much more. So remember, it's not always, you don't always get what you deserve, you get what you negotiate for. So you have to know what you can negotiate for. Again, I suggest you check out the union and see what they suggest in terms of minimum scale wages and regulations. And also what I'd suggest is you go out, check out my new edition of my book. It's called Business Basics for Musicians. It's now the orange cover. The first one was the lime green cover. So check out that book and definitely prosper from these tips, you guys.